Hello everyone and welcome to the channel, and in this video we are going to make a trip planner application using AI agents. As for the tech stack, we are going to use Next.js for the front end and Flask for the back end, since I want this application to be little lightweight. So first we are going to actually set up our project here. Okay, so right now I'm doing the setup of front end, and let's create one more terminal and let's go to this backend. Okay, and here, since I'm using Flask, we need to make a virtual environment here, so we can write python venv. Okay, so this will be python 3. Okay, so now we should have our virtual environment here, and then we can make a file name app.py. Okay, so this will be our main file here. Okay, so here for the front end, it is actually installed and everything is here. I'll be using LangChain here, so LangChain for the UI, so let's install that as well. And let's go to Next.js. Okay, npm copy and paste it over here. Okay, I'll be using zinc, and this should take some while, so let's go back to the backend, and I'll be making one more file that would be requirements.txt. Okay, and in that, where's that? Yeah, I'll be adding all the packages that I'll be using here. We're going to use Flask. Okay, then we are going to use Flask codes so that we can add our front end to the back end, then OpenAI. Okay, then python.env to reading all the environment variables from the environment files, then LangChain OpenAI. Okay, and then we are also going to use langgraph here to make a workflow to manage all the different agents using the langgraph. Okay, and lastly we are going to use Tavily Python. Okay, so Tavily provides you APIs. Using that you can actually search places, restaurant on the web. Okay, so yeah, these are the packages that we are going to use here, and let me add an extension here that would be Python. Okay, so I added the Python extension here. Now you can see that these are colors, and you can actually get the link to their packages. Okay, so yeah, after adding this, we can install, but before that we need to go inside the virtual environment, and for that we can write source venv, then bin, then activate. Okay, so this will activate our virtual environment, and now here we can install all the packages that are written over here. So we can write pip install. Let's do pip3 install -r requirements.txt, and then it will install. So everything installed. Now go to the app.py, and here let's make our Flask application. So I'm going to add Flask. So from Flask, import Flask. Okay, then request and then JSONify. Okay, and also I'm going to, let's do that later actually. We are going to make our app using the Flask and underscore name, and then if name is equals to main, okay, underscore main, then we are going to run the app.run, and debug will be true. Okay, and then port will be 5000. Okay, 5000. Now let's go above and let's make our first route here. So we are going to use the app decorator to define our route, and this will be home route. Methods will be, for now we are going to have get method over here, get method, and then we can have the function, let's say home function, and here simply we are going to return a JSON. So let's say body, and the body will have hi. Okay, now let's run the server over here. So we can write Python 3 app.py. Let's run this, allow, and here we have our server. You can go over here and okay, so name body is not defined. Okay, to solve this we have to add double inverted comma here. Okay, now there is no problem, and now we are going to work on our agents. And inside that, let's make a file, init.py. Okay, .py to make this Python package, and then the first agent that we are going to have is basically a base agent. Okay, and on the top of that we are going to define other agents. So we can import OS package. We are going to import the Azure chat open AI. Okay, if you are going to use a simple OpenAI keys not from the Azure, then you can just import the chat OpenAI, but I'm going to use the Azure one, that's why I'm going to use this. Okay, and then from the LangChain code dot messages, we are going to import human message and the system message. And lastly we are going to import .env from load.env. Okay. Import. Okay, let's invoke this function, and then we can start working on the base agent. So basically we are going to make a class over here, and yeah, in that we are going to initialize our LM here. So let's make the class, and this will be base agent. Okay, so I can just write base agent. Okay, now let's create the constructor of this class, and in that we are going to actually set up the connection between the server and the OpenAI. Okay, so self.llm. So inside this LLM we are going to store our connection, and then whenever we want to talk to the OpenAI we can use this LLM. Okay, so let's use the Azure chat OpenAI, and this will take a number of parameters. First will be Azure endpoint. Okay, so this basically tells you the address of your Azure OpenAI resource. Okay, so we can just write open host.get env, and then specify your env variable. So in my case this is Azure OpenAI endpoint. Okay, then we are going to have API key. So this is how actually the Azure is going to authenticate you, whether you have valid permission or not to actually access this resource. Okay, so yeah, you can also get that from your Azure portal. So we can write Azure OpenAI API key. Okay, and then specify the API version. Okay, so yeah, this is just the API version, which version of the API you are using actually. I will just copy this and write OS, and this will be API version. Okay, and then we are going to have the deployment name. Okay, deployment name of your model. Okay, so I can just paste it over here and write deployment name. Okay, and apart from this we are going to have two more parameters. First will be temperature. Okay, and this will I'm going to assign 0.7 value. So temperature basically tells you how creative you want your answer to be. Okay, so 0 is basically very predictable. Okay, it will give same answer every time. It will not actually do much. If you want fact, if you want your answer to be exact, okay, you don't want any creativeness in that answer, then you can use 0. If you want very creative answer, okay, then you can use 1. And but we do not actually want 1 or 0 because that would be too extreme. So we want a balance over here. So you basically you get the perfect answer but with some creativity. Okay, so that is why we are using 0.7. and then we are going to specify how many tokens we are going to use in per request. Okay, so max tokens I'm specifying is 3000. Okay, so this is how actually you set up your connection between your server and Azure OpenAI. Okay, so this should be LangChain. Okay, and then this should be max tokens. So yeah, these are the two spelling mistakes, please. And then we are going to define a function that would invoke the LLM. So let's define that function, invoke, and we are going to pass our variables over here, then system prompt that we are going to get from our app.py. This will be a type of string, and then we want to have the user prompt that user actually gives to the LLM. This will be coming from front end, and then yeah, temperature. I think temperature can be given, but I'm not going to given. Yeah, and that's it. And what we want as an output is a string. Okay, so I can just write over here about the function. This will invoke the LLM with user and system prompt. Now here we are going to make a list of the system prompt and the human message. Okay, so we can use the system message that we imported over here and pass the content, which is basically system prompt. Similarly, we are going to use the human message, pass the content, not continue, content, and this will be user prompt. Okay, and after that we can actually call our LLM over here and get the response from that. So response is equals to self dot LLM dot invoke and then messages. Okay, and lastly we can return our response. So response dot content. Okay, so this is the base class, basically base agent that we will be using to make other agents. Okay, so now let's use this base agent. And yeah, the first agent that we are going to make is extraction agent.py. So this is the file that we're going to make, and what this will do is actually this is going to extract the useful information from the user prompt and store it in a JSON format. Okay, import JSON. Okay, and from the base agent, okay, we are going to import this base agent class. Okay, and now we are going to make the class over here for the extraction agent. Okay, and this will use the base agent over there. We can write like agent responsible for extracting useful information from the user's prompt. Okay, extracting is okay, I think that's good. And now we are going to define our function. Okay, so this function is basically it will call the invoke function that we defined in the base agent, but before that we need to define our system prompt and the user prompt, and that user prompt will take the input that user give from our front end. Okay, so let's write a function which will be extract details, and we will have self and the user input as the arguments here. It will be a type of string, and we are going to get dictionary as an output, which is basically a JSON. Okay, and yeah, we can write let's just forget that. Okay, so now let's add a system prompt here. System prompt. Okay, so this will be our system prompt, and let's add the word wrap over here. Okay, so this will be our system prompt here. So basically we are saying that you are a travel data extraction expert, and you will have to extract the meaningful information from the user input, and and then return it in valid JSON. Okay, so yeah, now we can add the user prompt here, and this will be a little bit longer. So we are going to use f string here, since we are going to add user input here as well. Okay, so just going to write extract the following information from the user's travel request. Okay, and then we are going to specify the user request, which will be basically users prompt, users input. Okay, user input, and now we are going to define our return JSON, how we want our JSON to be. So yeah, this will be like this. Okay, I hope you can see this. So basically we will have destination, duration, budget, travel type, travelers interest, and then overview. Okay, and lastly we need to close this. So again I'll explain this. This is the system prompt, this is the user prompt, and from the user input we want these kind of information to be extracted in the form of JSON. And after this we can add one more thing, which will be return. So return only the JSON object, no other text. So we only want the JSON from our LLM, nothing else. Okay, and now we are going to call our LLM over here. So we can write response is equals to self dot invoke. Okay, and then we are going to provide the system prompt. Okay, this should be inside this, so please be careful about the indentation. So system prompt and then user prompt. So this will give us a JSON, but the response will look like something like this. If you have seen the response from OpenAI, it generally starts with something like this. Okay, so we want this in a proper JSON format. So we are going to do some more cleanups here. Okay, so we are going to use the response here, and we are going to remove any trailing white spaces here. Then we are going to check if we have any kind of this kind of pattern in our response. Okay, so we can write if response dot starts with, and then we can pass this JSON. Okay, if we found this, then we are going to have response will be response, and then we are going to slice that. Okay, so the seventh, after the seventh character we are going to get the whole JSON. Okay, basically. Okay, now we are going to add one more condition, and this will be similar to this. So I'm just going to copy and paste here, and this we just need to remove the JSON, and it will be 3. So sometime we may find just 3 backticks over here, so we need to remove that as well. And response dot starts with, and we can also have the backtick in the end. Okay, so for that we need response is equals to response, and this will be ends with, not starts with. Okay, so ends with. So if we have ends with this, we are going to have -3, so we want to remove these 3 backticks. Okay, and again response is equals to response dot strip. Again we are going to remove all the white spaces. Okay, and then let's add the except JSON dot JSON decode error as E, and then we can print some exceptions over here. Okay, so this is done. I have added some print statement and a return JSON. So if anything fails over here, we are going to return with this JSON. Okay, and yeah, with this our extraction agent is complete, and now we are going to use these informations one by one using our agents. Okay, through our agents. Okay, so first will be our destination, and for that we are going to make place agent. Okay, so this will basically find places to visit and other kind of stuff. Okay, and before making that, let's make a helper function over here, and let's call this not inside the agent. We can directly make this inside the backend. So helper.py, and inside that import os, import request, and then from urlib.pass import quat, and then from .env import load.env. Okay, and then we are going to add one more package here, which will be url lib3. okay, and we need to install that actually. So clear. So this package comes from request package, so we need to install pip install request. Okay, and we need to also add that inside our requirements.tsp. So here we can add request. Okay, and now we can use this. So basically we need this because we want to disable the SSL warning that we are going to get from pixels, since we are using the pixels images over here. So we will get a warning if we use that directly. So just for disabling those warnings, I'm going to use this. Yeah, SSL warning. And then we can use this url lib3 dot disable warnings, and inside that url lib3 dot exceptions dot insecure request warning. Okay, and then we are going to load our env variables. Okay, now let's make our class here. So helper. So I'll mention that for images we are going to use pixels, and for map links we are going to generate ourselves. Okay, but you can also do that using the Google APIs, but for that you have to pay first. So I'll also show you after this helper class how to actually use Google APIs to fetch the real images from the Google and the real map links. Okay, so I'll do that later. Let's do this first. So I'll define the constructor function, and okay, self dot. So this will we are going to make a variable here. Okay, so pixel API key, and we are going to get from our env file. So get env, and then we can add the variable in pixel API key. And now let's define another function which will be search images, and we are going to search the images from the pixels. So definition, so self, then var query, which we get from our extraction agent, which will be a type of string, and then number of results, how many basically images you want. Okay, so by default it will be 1. Okay, it will be type of integer, and by default it will be 1, and then the output will be list. So if we do not have the API key, then we are going to use unsplash here. Okay, so if we do not have this, then return list. We're going to use f string and then https / and then we are going to pass our query. So quote and then pass the query. Okay, so yeah, if we do not have the API key, then we are going to fall back to the unsplash. If we have the API key, then we are going to try and use the query to get some results from the pixels, and from that we are going to get the results, the number of results we want, the number of images that we want from those searches. Okay, so the URL will be https. Now we can define the headers. In the headers we are going to provide the authorization which will be self dot pixels API key, and strip, if there's any white spaces we are going to remove that. Okay, after that define the params. So this will be first query, so query will be query, and then the number of results we are going to use that, so that is per page. Then we can pass the number of results and then orientation. Okay, this will be landscape. Okay, so now this defined, we can use this. So response is equals to requests dot get, and we can pass the URL, then headers will be headers, and then params, that would be params, and then timeout, which will be 10 seconds, and then verify false. Okay, and now we are going to check if response dot status code is equals to 200. Okay, then we are going to get the results is equals to response dot json, and we are going to make a list here of the images. So for photo in results dot get photo. Okay, so image URL is equals to of photo dot get, and we are going to get the src and dot get and dot get large. Okay, so from the photos we want the large photo only, and this should be inside this. Okay, and if we get the image URL, so we can write image, sorry, if we have the image URL, then we can append inside these images. So images dot append and then image URL. Okay, and if we have the images after this loop, then we can return the images here, and let's write a print statement, print f string found the image for query. Okay, so yeah, if we found the images, then we are going to return, otherwise else we can just return this. Okay, and let's also print statement here, f string no pixel image found using unslash for, and then use the query. Okay, now after that we are going to handle this if statement. So if we do not get the status code 200, then again we are going to return this, and let's also copy this print statement. So we are going to return this, and we can remove this and write pixel API error, okay, response dot status code and using unsplash. Okay, so now after that we are going to handle our try block. Okay, so we are using try here, so we are going to catch, so we are going to accept exception as E, and again we are going to return the same unsplash, and then we are going to print again f string, and then we can write pixel error, then we can pass the E and write using unsplash now. Okay, so this is how we are going to get the images from pixels. Okay, and we have handled all the cases over here. So each time if anything goes wrong, we are going to use the unsplash. Okay, now we are going to make one more function. Make the function that would be get map links, and this will be self, and the place name, which will be a type of string, and the city. So these two things we are going to get from the extraction helper. Okay, so the extraction agent, and in the response we want just string. Okay, so we are going to make query using this using the place name and the city. So using the f string, we're going to name the place name and city, and we are going to use the strip to remove the comma. Okay, and now we are going to encode this query. So encoded query is equals to quote and then pass the query. Okay, and now we are going to return a string, okay, which will be https then question mark API, and we're going to then this will be equals to 1 actually, and then query is equals to our encoded query. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of red colors. I think there's some problem here, so let's go over here and import our helper class. So from helper I'm going to import helper class. Okay, and let's save this and let's see what error we are getting. Okay, so yeah, there's one problem that these should be inside parentheses small. Okay, now this should work. I'm just going to copy this and paste at other places, here, here. Okay, I think that should do. So again I'm going to clear this and write this. Yeah, everything is working. So yeah, this is done. So this is how we are going to get our images and the map links. Now I'm going to make one more helper file here. This would be google helper.py, and here I'm going to show you how you can use the Google API keys to actually get the real images and the real map URL, okay, for that location. Okay, so this is how you can actually use the Google API keys to get the images and the map URLs. Okay, so you will need these three keys. Just first the Google API key. How you can get that? You can go to the Google console cloud google.com, and from there you can create a project. Then you can go to the API and services, get the credentials, create credentials, and then you also need to you have to restrict it by API, and you have to enable this custom search API in the API library. Okay, so you will have to do all this, and then you will get this Google API key. And the same for this Google Place API key, they are actually same. You just need to go and then enable this Places API and then use it over here. Okay, and as for the Google search engine ID, you have to go to this URL, add or edit search engine. Then basically you have to choose the search entire web. Okay, and then after creating that, you can just copy the ID. It will look something like that. And then after that, you have to go again into the API and services, enable APIs, and then you can yeah, this is same custom search API, so you have to enable that. After that, you will be able to use these APIs, but before that you also need to add your payment method. So this only works if you have added your payment method, otherwise you will get 403 error. Okay, and now after that we can just use this. So first we are going to define the search images, and basically we are going to use our keys over here to call this URL endpoint, get the response, get the images, and if we do not find any images, then we are going to use the unsplash one. Okay, and then we have basically we first need to get the details about the place that we are searching for. So we are going to provide all the information that we have over here, and then uh, basically call this API endpoint, and from that we are going to get all these details that Google will provide us. And then we are going to actually generate our map URL using this function. So this is the function. Basically this is the f string. We are just going to return a string over here, and we are going to get the place ID uh, from the Google itself. So we are going to add this place ID over here and get the map URL. Yeah, so basically that's it. And if anything goes wrong, then we are going to fall back to this particular method, which is the same as this one, where we are actually generating uh, map URLs by ourselves. Okay, and then we have another function which is get static map image. Basically this will give you a URL, map URL, that you can use inside your image tag. So a small map can be shown, a small map can be shown on your application. Okay, so this is how you can do that. We are going to use the same Google API key, Google Places key, and now that we have the details of the places, we can just use the latitude, longitude, and get the URL from that, and then we can use this inside the image tags. Yeah, so this is how we can use the Google APIs. And if you want, if you have these keys, then you can surely use this and call these helpers instead of the helpers from here. Okay, and after that, let's go to again place agent and start working on this. So first let's import the JSON and then import the OS package, and from base agent we are going to import the base agent class, and then from helper we are going to import the helper class, and then from Tavily import Tavily client. Okay, and now let's define our class. So we can write class place agent, which will inherit our base agent, and here we are going to define the constructor. So that init self, and basically we are also going to call the super method here. Basically we are going to call the init, the constructor of the base agent, because we want our LLM to be already set up when we are going to use it in this base agent. Okay, now the next thing is our key. So I'm just going and copy and pasting some code over here, because otherwise this whole video will be too long. So yeah, we are using the table key, and we are going to get from our environment, and then we are going to store that in this variable. Okay, and then we have our helper, not Google helper, and this will use this class helper class. Okay, so now we have our constructor function. Next we are going to make the function that will actually find the places on the web using the table. So let's define that, find place, and then we can pass the self and then travel details. Okay, details, which will be a type of dictionary, and in return we want a list. Okay, so from the travel details we are going to get the destination, duration, and interest. Okay, and based on that we are going to go do the web search using the table. So yeah, doing the web search for the real places, and if we have the table keys, then we are going to make a query. Okay, first we need to make the query string. So top tourist attraction places to visit in, then the destination name, and yeah, doing some join actions over here. Okay, now after that the search response. So we can pass this query in the table, then search, and we are going to get the 5 maximum result. Okay, and then we are going to store that inside the results, search results inside this list. Okay, now if we get any kind of exception, then we are going to we are going to just print table search error, and then print out the error. After that we are going to basically prepare some context based on the searches that we have done over here, and then we can give this to our LLM. Okay, so basically we are using the same search result over here. Okay, we are using the same search result, and from that we are making a string uh, which will use the title and content of the search result to make a context that we can give to our LLM. Okay, otherwise no web data available, we can just pass that over here. And now as for the system prompt, this is the system prompt that we are going to give. You are a local travel expert with deep knowledge of tourist extractions, and then yeah, use the web search result to provide the accurate real information about the places. So basically we are providing the name and content, but our LLM will do more research using these context on the web and give us more information back in the response that we are going to show on our uh, application. Okay, so yeah, this is just for the context that we are providing. Okay, now after that we are going to define our user prompt. Okay, so this is the user prompt that we are going to give. Okay, and yeah, based on the web search result, so based on this result that we are giving as a context, create a detailed list of must visit places, destination and duration of the trip, and then we are going to give the web context, interest, budget level, and we want the response in this format from our LLM, and only the JSON we want, no other text. Okay, so this will give us place, description, category, location, and other important parameters that we are going to use. Okay, and now we are going to call our basically LLM from the base agent. Okay, so we can write response is equals to self, and we can use the invoke here, and then we can pass the system prompt, then user prompt. Okay, so these two prompts we are going to pass, and now we are going to clean up our JSON again. So we can just go here in the extraction agent, and we can copy this agent, and here we can write try and catch, sorry, try and accept in the case of Python. Okay, so this will do. And now we are going to add the images and the map URLs inside this JSON. So basically we already have a field name image URL, so we are going to remove this. Okay, and then paste sorry, add the images that we are going to get from the helper class. Okay, and also we are going to add one more field, which will be map URL that we are going to generate from this helper function. Okay, so yeah, let's add those here as well. In this session we want our URLs, the image URLs and the map URLs to be included as well. So first we are going to make a list out of this response. This is currently a JSON, so we want that into a list. Then we are going to make the place query and then do the search image using the search image function inside the helper. So this function we are going to use that and get the image URL. And similarly we can have the map link using the not this one, basically not Google helper, it is helper. So self, let me remove this. So self dot helper dot, yeah, the same function. So self dot helper dot get map link, and from this we are going to get our map link. And yeah, place image search, and this is just another field that we can use over here. Accept json dot json decode error as e, and here we are going to return an empty list. Okay, and also let's print f string that json decode error in place agent, and then add the agent here, sorry, error here, and also this should be inside this, and also one more print that response was this, so response. Okay, so place agent is complete. Now the next agent that we are going to make is a restaurant agent. So we can write restaurant agent.py. Okay, now let's make this as well. So yeah, this will be almost same like the place agent. Here we are again going to use the Tavily to find the restaurant with keywords like destination and city location, like our city, country. Okay, and then we are going to give that to LLM. Based on that, it will generate a good response in JSON format, and then we are going to use that in our front end. So the process will be same, so I'm just going to copy and paste my previous code over here, and yeah, I'll just explain how this works. Okay, so this is the code that we are going to use for the restaurant agent. Okay, so we are importing JSON OS, our base agent, helper class, and then the Tavily. Okay, now after that we are going to define a constructor. Here again we are going to initiate the base agents constructor, so that we can basically set up the connection between LLM and our server. And then this is the key. From the key we are going to set up our client and store it in a Tavily variable, and then we have our helper. Now we are going to find the restaurant, so we are going to use the travel details. Based on that we are going to get the destination, budget, interest and traveler. Now using this we are going to make a query. So based on this destination we are going to find the best restaurant. From the search we are going to do the result, search result using this field, we are going to get all the results and then save it inside the search result. Okay, and then we are going to create a web context. So basically the context that we are going to give to the LLM. Then we have the system prompt. Basically you are a food and dining expert, extensive knowledge and blah blah blah, so you can just copy and paste. And this is the user prompt. It will almost be same, just a little bit difference, like recommend restaurant based on the destination and travelers, web context, interest and everything. And we want RJSON in this format. Okay, so name, cuisine, description, everything. Okay, after that we can just after that we can call our LLM using the invoke function, pass the system prompt and the user prompt. And yeah, this only takes system prompts and user prompt. And then we are going to do some cleanups, and again we are going to add the image URLs for those as well. Okay, for the restaurant and then their location, and if anything happens then we are going to throw this error. Okay, and let me add this line as well over here. Basically if we found any kind of URL, then we are going to set that as a source URL, and this will be places, I think. Okay, so let's save this and save this as well. And now the next agent is going to be our hotel agent. So again the process will be same, hotels agent.py. the code will be same, the flow will be same, so everything will be same. So again I'm just going to copy and paste the code here and just explain to you guys. Okay, so this is the code for hotel agent. Everything is almost same. I think it is identical apart from the system prompt and the user prompt. Okay, so I'll just again explain one more time. This is the constructor, this is the find hotel function. We are getting some more details from our travel details. So basically we are also getting the travel type. Okay, and then we're doing the search again to the Tavily, getting the response and storing in this variable, then generating the context, and we are defining the system prompt, user prompt and the JSON. Okay, and then again after we get the response we are going to clean up that response. We are going to add our image URL and the map links inside this. Okay, and if there is any problem we are going to throw this error, print this error basically, and then also return an empty list. Okay, so this is the hotel agent. And now the last agent that we are going to make is itinerary agent basically. Yeah, and what it will do is it's going to make a plan. How should you plan your journey based on the data that it has collected, basically the hotels, restaurant and the places that you will actually visit. So based on those things it is actually going to make a plan. So first we are going to add our imports, and after that we are going to make our class. So this will be the class for our agent, responsible for creating date by day itinerary, and then we are going to get the destination, duration, interest and budget from the travel details, and then we are going to start preparing the context. Okay, so that we can give to the LLM. Okay, so this is the context that we are going to give, prepare the call. So okay, so this is the context that we are going to give. So basically place summary, so using the name, category, location, entry fee, all that details that we are going to get from the places, we are going to make a summary for that. Then restaurant summary, using the restaurant data that we are going to get from the restaurant agent, we are going to make the context. Now we are going to also define the system prompt. You are a expert itinerary planner creating a realistic well-placed daily schedule. Okay, and then yeah, other things like we want only JSON. Okay, nothing else. And now we are going to define our user prompt. Okay, so this is the user prompt that we are going to give. and yeah, available places and the restaurant summary, places summary, your interest, your budget, and based on that it will create a JSON something like this: day one, meals, estimated cost, and tips. Okay, so and after that we are going to call the LLM, basically invoke that, and basically the code will be same. So we are going to invoke that, pass the system and the user prompt, not the temperature, and then we are going to clean up that, and then return the JSON here in the form of list. Otherwise, if we get any kind of error, we are going to return empty list. Okay. Okay, I won't forget one thing, that we are going to so need to return. Okay, I forgot one thing, that we also need to return the places. Okay. Okay, and I think I forgot here. No, in the restaurant we have that, and in the hotels we have the hotels. So now the itinerary agent is also done, and with that we have all the agents ready. Now we can actually call each agent one by one based on our workflow and get the details and make the whole plan for the journey. Okay, and for that we are going to actually use langgraph here. So we are going to make each agent as a node and then call them one by one. Okay, so this will be outside the agent. So in the backend I'm going to make workflow dot py. Okay, so now let's work on our workflow, and first let's do some import. So from typing I'm going to import type ticked and annotated, and from the langgraph dot graph I'm going to import state graph and end. Okay, and now we are going to import all the agents. So from agents I'm going to import the extraction agent class. Now let's define the class using the type dict. Basically we are going to define a schema or structure which our multi-agents are going to use. Okay, so we can write travel plan state, travel plan state, and this will inherit type dict, and inside that we are going to have different fields. So I'm just going to paste over here. Basically this is the schema that each agent will use. Okay, now we are going to define the main workflow class. So we can write class travel plan workflow, and now inside that the first thing we are going to do, this is place agent. Okay, so now here the first thing we are actually going to do is actually make the constructor and get all the agents ready here basically. Okay, so this is the extraction, place, hotel, restaurant, and itinerary. Okay, and now we are going to build the workflow graph. Okay, so we are going to do that by defining a function named build workflow, and then we are going to save that inside this variable. So now let's define this function. Okay, so right now this is not defined, so we are going to define that the function which is build a workflow. Okay, and this will take self, and in return we are going to get the state graph. Okay, basically this in return. So now let's start making that. So I'm going to add a little description, build the langgraph workflow. Okay, now we are going to create the graph first. So, and we can do that by workflow not self dot workflow. Workflow is equals to state graph, then pass the travel plan state. Basically we tell langgraph what structure of the data we want. Okay, so yeah, that is why we are passing travel plan state. Now let's add the node for each agent. So node for agents. Okay, and we can do that by writing this. So workflow dot add node, and we are going to call this extract, and then we are going to call a function name underscore extract node. Okay, so we are going to define that function over here. So I'm just going to write underscore extract node, and let me just return this. Okay, so similarly we can do for other agents as well, and we need to define function for each of them. Okay, so this is how we are going to add remaining agents, and now after that we are going to make the workflow edges. So how we want our agent to be executed, so we can define the workflow edges. Okay, so the entry point of our workflow will be extract. Basically we want to extract the meaningful information from user input, so we can write workflow set entry point, and then inside that we can pass the extract node. So this is the node that we are passing here, and then we can specify which node we want to execute it next. So add edge, this is edge, and then pass the name of that, so extract. So after we are done extracting, we are going to call the next node, which will be find place, and similarly we can do for the other agents, and similarly we can do for the other nodes. So I'm just going to paste here. So this is the workflow that is going to be executed here. Now after that I'm going to define each basically functions here. So these functions are going to call these agents inside here. Okay, so this function will take self state, which is basically the travel plan state, and then in the end we want output in the same uh, structure. Okay, so this will be for node for extraction agent. This is the name agent. Okay, and then we can write a print here. So when we uh, actually when we execute this whole workflow, we want to know which agent is running and when it is running. Okay, so I'm just going to add a print here for the development purpose only. And now we can use the try and catch. So I'm just going to remove the return here and try travel details is equals to self dot extraction agent. So this is the agent that we want to use. Just going to copy this and paste here. Then we are going to call the function name, which is extract details. Okay, then we have to pass the user input here, because this just takes the user input. So we can get the user input like this. Okay, and now after that it will give details and save it over here. So now we want our state to change, so travel details will be equals to travel details. Okay, so let's go basically in the extraction agent, and this is the extract detail function that we are calling here, and this only takes the user input. Okay, so let's go here. I'm going to just confirm one more time. This is the function we are calling. if there is any error, so exception SE, if there is any error, then we are just going to make state error is equals to str e, and let's also print. Now I'm also going to print what we have extracted here, so just for the development purpose. Okay, extracted, then travel details dot get, and then destination, and then we can also get travel details dot get duration. Okay, I think this should be good. Yes, and lastly we are going to return the state from here. So from this function we only added the detail to this travel detail column, okay, or the field. Okay, now in the same way we are going to use other agents and try to fill all this data. Okay, so let's go below and define other nodes. Okay, so the next is the places node. Okay, and yeah, same way we are passing the state here. Okay, the same way we are getting state as argument here, and then we are calling our agent and then find places function, which is here, find places function, and then from that we are getting the places and then we are storing that in this field. Okay, the same setup is for the others, so I'm just going to copy and paste all of them over here so we do not waste any time. Okay, so in the same way I have added the restaurant node, which calls the restaurant agent, and we store the value in the restaurant field, and same way the hotels, and same way for the itinerary node. Okay, so here in the itinerary we provide the travel details, places, and restaurant, and we get the itinerary JSON from that. Okay, and now we also, if you see that, we are also calculating the budget breakdown here. So if user have given $2,000 of budget, so how much of that money uh, we have used actually by our, how much of that money our agents, how much money, how much of that money actually in this. So if the user have given $2,000 of budget, then uh, how much we actually have used and how much is remaining. Okay, after this whole planning. Okay, so these are the nodes that we now have created here. Now after that, let's define our budget uh, function. So basically calculate the budget. Okay, and this will have self, then state, which will be a type of travel, then state, and from that we want dictionary as output. Okay, inside that we are going to import regular expression library, and now let's use this regular expression package to define a function, and this will actually extract the cost from a string that we actually gets from the LLM or our agent. So if we say $50, $100 or $50, then we are going to extract all these numbers and then basically take the average of the range and yeah, return that. So this is how we are going to basically get the cost of uh, a particular restaurant place. Okay, so now we are going to apply this function to each of the responses that our agent have given. So here you can see calculate the accommodation cost here like this. So we get the data from our state, and then we do the for loop because we have different hotels, multiple hotels in this. So on all those hotels we're going to apply extract cost function, get the final answer, and then append inside the hotel cost array. And now from this list we are getting the minimum of that and then calling this accommodation cost. In the same way we are doing for the itinerary, basically restaurants cost, then activities. So basically where you are visiting, some places have entry fee, some don't. So uh, entry fee or zero, okay. And then we are assuming 12%, 10 to 50% of total travel cost. So this will be budgeted into 0.12, and then miscellaneous cost, which is 8%, okay. So now we can just return the total estimate. So the total estimate is adding all these cost, and then also we are defining the remaining budget, which is budget minus total estimate, and then returning this JSON which have all the cost included, okay. Now after that we are going to define the main function that we are going to call from our app.py, which will run this whole workflow. So we can call that planned travel, and this will take self and user input in the form of str, and for output we are going to have dictionary, okay. Now the first thing we are going to do is initialize our states with these values, and now we are going to start our workflow, okay. So execute the workflow, and then we can write final state is equals to self.workflow.invoke and then initial state, okay. And after everything is complete, we can return this JSON to our app.py, then ultimately to our front end. So this is the data that will be going to our front end, okay. Okay, so this is how we are going to define our workflow, okay, to call each of our agent and do the work. And one more thing, that this should be a little bit outside, so these can be called, okay. And now our workflow is complete. Now we are going to go to the app.py and test it. First test our this whole workflow, and then we can then connect to our front end, okay. So I have imported the workflow, and in the home directory uh, I have paste and user input that I want to travel to Tokyo for 7 days with $3,000 budget, okay. And then I'm printing the response here. So let's run this, okay. So yeah, we're getting some errors and we are going to basically fix that. So self workflow dot invoke is okay. Let's go here. Okay, so the problem is coming from here, and it is saying that none type object has no attribute invoke, and I think the problem is coming from here, because here because after defining our nodes and edges we need to actually compile our workflow and then return it, which we did not. So workflow dot compile, and yeah, I think this should work then. So I'm going to again run this. So now let's go here and you can see the port. So we have extracted the travel details, Now we are going to find the places to visit and also generate or get the images from pixels based on uh, the places that we are going to visit. So these are the images that we were able to find from pixels, and same for we are going to do with the restaurant and for the hotels. So everything is working. Yeah, so this is the response that we're getting. Okay, so this is all the response that we are getting, and we are going to send it to our front end to actually use that, and also here as well. So you'll see this is the Google map link, and then this is the pixels image that we were able to get from the pixels. Let's open a new tab. So this is the image. So Tokyo Station Hotel Tokyo. Okay, so and here you can see the budget background. So this is all the data that we are getting from our backend, and now that we know everything is working, now we are going to set up our API route and then connect to our front end, and then we can work on our front end. Okay, so we can change the route. So basically now the route will be called API slash planned travel. Okay, and then everything will be same, just I'm going to remove this, and then I can write try and catch. So data will be request dot get JSON. Let's do the imports first. So I'm going to import the Flask core. So from Flask cores import cores, and from .env import load.env. Okay, and then we can here call this function. After that the request get JSON, and from the data we are going to get the user input. So user input, and this will be equals to data dot get user input. Okay, and if not user input is there, so then we are going to just return JSONify an error. So error will be, after that make a variable named result which will store all the response from our basically agents. So planned travel and pass the user input. After that we are going to check for errors. So if result dot get error, then we are going to return JSONify error, and the error will be result error, and then it status code 500. Okay, and lastly then we can return JSONify result with the status code 200. Okay, and then let's accept exception as E, and then we can return again JSONify error, and it will be str E and then status code 500. Okay, so this is all we have to do for for the basically our backend. And now the method will be post. One more thing. Okay, so this is all we have to do now for the backend, and now we are going to work on our front end. Okay, and let's also add the calls here. Okay, so now let's go to our front end and start working on that. So I'm just going to close this, and then let's work on that. Okay, so let's start working on our front end. So I'm just going to remove this, and we have already installed the section here. So in the package.json you will see we have section. Okay, now we are going to add the components of that. So we can go here and write section and then components. So the first component we need is badge. So copy, and then let's go to the front end one. Then here we can add the badge. Okay, and then we also need to add button, then card, then tabs, then text area, and that's all. Okay, so this is done, and now one more package that we need to install is lucid react. So npm install lucid react. Okay, and that is all we need to add, lucid e. Okay, so this is done, and now I can just run the server. So npm endeavor, this is the front end server. So we can write localhost 3000. Okay, let's save this, and nothing will be shown over here. So now we can start implementing our front end. So only one page I'm going to make here, which will be this home page, and I'm going to make this a client component. Okay, and yeah, let's do the imports first. So I'm going to import use state, and then, and similarly we can import others as well. So I'm importing these icons from lucid react, button, text area, card component from card. Okay, and then tabs, and then badge. Okay, after that I'm going to define the interface. So in what structure we are going to get the data. So basically interface will be travel details. Okay, and this will have destination, which will be a type of string, and then we are going to have duration, budget, travel cost, travel type, interest, and overview. Okay, and now we are going to define the place, restaurant, hotel, activity, itinerary, travel plan. Okay, all these interfaces as well. So I'm just going to copy and paste over here. Okay, so these are the interfaces that we need to actually define. So this is the place, it will have these fields, then restaurant, then hotel, activity, itinerary, and then travel plan overall. And this should be travel. Okay, travel details. Okay, so after this let's define some states over here. So first will be travel input, or user input basically. Set user input is equals to use state, initial will be empty string, then const loading, and this should be inside square brackets. Okay, and then set loading is equals to use state, and initial value will be false. And in the same way we are going to define a state for storing our data when we display that. So travel plan, set travel plan is equals to use state, type will be travel plan or null. Okay, initial value will be null, and then const error to show the error. Okay, set error is equals to use state, and initial value will be empty string. Okay, now we are going to define handle submit function. Okay, so this will call our backend essentially. So this is our handle submit function. Okay, this will be a asynchronous function, and we are doing set loading true. Error will be still empty string. Initially the data will be null, and then this is the request. We are doing post request to the backend, which is at the port 5000, and then we are parsing the user input, and this should be user as well. Okay, and then we are getting the data in the form of JSON, and then we are going to set that into this state. Okay, and after that, yeah, we start working on our JSX. So first we are going to have header. Let's save this and go back here. So this is the header, air travel planner, and yeah, the description. Okay, so next is our form. So this will be user input, and this will be set user input, and we can save this, and yeah, this will look something like this, where user will just where he or she want to travel. Okay, so this we have also given a example how you should enter your basically input. Okay, and now after that everything will be for the result. So we can go below, and then we can add here for the travel plan. So if we have something in a travel plan state, basically if we have our data, then we are going to show this. Okay, so inside that we are going to have a div, give this a class name of space y6. Okay, and then inside that we are going to have the summary header. Okay, so this is the summary header that we are going to show. Okay, so I'm just going to save this, and I'll just explain. So inside the summary header we have card basically, and we are going to show destination, duration, budget, and travel, how many travelers are there. Okay, so this is the summary header. Now after that, we are going to show the budget breakdown. Okay, so this is for the budget. So here basically you are within the budget or you have exceeded the budget based on the data we are getting, and then what we are showing, so how much you have expended, how much you will spend on accommodation, food, activities, and all this stuff. And after that we are going to give them total and your budget, and then after your remaining or over budget, basically plus or minus basically. So this is what we are going to show here. Okay, and after that we are going to have tabs for the different sections. So itinerary, hotels, restaurant, and places to visit. So we are going to have tabs for different sections. Okay, so these are the tabs that we are going to actually show here. So itinerary, places, restaurant, and hotels. So the first will be itinerary tab. So here we are going to just show the estimated cost of that day. Okay, and then location where you have to actually visit. Okay, and then meals for breakfast, lunch, dinner, tips for the day. These are the stuff that we are going to show here. Now we are going to add the tab content for the places. So just below this we can add that. So in the places tab content, we are going to show the image that we are getting from the pixels, and if there's any error we are going to show this unslash image. Okay, then place name, place category, place rating, location, best time to visit that place, entry fee, and then some tips. Okay, and also we are going to have the map link, so user can click on this and visit, click the Google map. Now lastly we can add these two, restaurant and hotel, so I'm going to add them both. So this is the tab content for restaurant. Same here, the image, the name of the restaurant, budget, description, atmosphere, best time, and their specialties, and then their map link. And then hotels, this is the image, name, rating, and the price, room type, amenities, what amenities they give, okay, and then their map link, okay. And lastly add a button which will remove the data from travel plan state, and then we will be able to add another input, and here it will be user input, okay. So now let's save and let's see if this is working or not. So here we can refresh, server is running, okay. So now I can just write, and now let's write our trial plan. So let's go here, it will take some time, so let's go here and see our logs. Okay, so now the workflow is complete. Let's go here, and here you can see itinerary, so day 1, day 2, and other stuff. So total 7 days basically we have here. And yeah, this is the budget breakdown. So here you will see accommodation is 665, food and dining $1000, activities 109, transportation miscellaneous $240, and our total is $2424 that you are going to spend by these two travelers. Obviously this is based on the minimum of everything. So places, let's say, yeah, so this is free, this is $27, $35, so this will be included all. And for the restaurant, uh, this will be taken, so average of this, average of this, average of this. And for the hotels, actually we are going to go with the cheapest one. So in these, this is the cheapest one, so basically this will be included in your accommodations, okay. So that is why the total cost is under 3000. But if you go for higher end restaurant or hotels like this one, then it is obviously going to be over 3000. So yeah, so this is the whole application. So this was the tutorial, hope you guys liked it, and yeah, if you liked it then do subscribe and like this video.